I always believed in moments. Not fate, not destiny, just moments. And I thought I had found one of those rare, crystal clear moments with Claire. Claire wasn't the kind of girl who turned heads in a crowd, she stopped time. Every move she made was effortless, like she wasn't trying, because she wasn't. We met at a friend's engagement party 2 years ago. I was the best man. She was there with some mutuals. I don't even remember what drink I spilled on her dress, just that she laughed, not angry, just amused. That laugh. I'd chase it anywhere. And I did. Fast forward 2 years and I had the ring. Platinum band, oval cut, vintage setting, her dream. I had it hidden in my sock drawer, under some old baseball cards. Every time I walked by, I'd peek in, like a kid checking on Christmas presents. I was going to ask her to marry me at the lake house, her favorite place in the world. But first, I wanted to do something traditional. I wanted to ask her father. Claire didn't talk about her family much. Said they weren't close. Her dad lived out in upstate New York, worked in insurance, retired early, kept to himself. But if I was going to spend the rest of my life with her, I figured I'd do things right. She resisted at first, but I pressed. Just one dinner, I said. Let me shake his hand. She finally gave in and gave me his number. When I called, he sounded surprised. Claire, he repeated. My Claire. That should have been the first red flag. But I brushed it off. Maybe they hadn't talked in a while. We set up the meeting for the next Saturday at a quiet little diner in Syracuse. Claire said she had to stay back for work, end of quarter madness, she called it. I didn't mind. I thought I was just being romantic. Before I left, she hugged me longer than usual. Held my face in her hands like I might disappear. You're a good man, Jake, she whispered. The best I've ever known. I should have asked then, what do you mean by ever? But I didn't. I kissed her, said I'd be back by dinner, and drove off. The diner was nearly empty when I got there. An old man with sharp eyes and a weathered face was already sitting at a booth, hands folded over a coffee mug. He stood as I walked up. Mr. Walters? I asked. He nodded. Call me Mark. We sat. He didn't waste time. So, you're here to talk about Claire? I smiled, nervous. Yeah. I wanted to ask for your blessing. I plan to propose soon. Mark didn't smile. He looked away, then back at me, slower this time. And you're sure she told you everything? I paused. Everything. She didn't mention her husband. I blinked. Laughed nervously. What? Mark didn't laugh. Or her son. His name is Caleb. 4 years old. Looks just like her. I stared at him. The words didn't land all at once, they echoed, bounced around in my skull, refusing to settle. You're joking, I said, weakly. He shook his head. I wish I were. My stomach dropped. My mind raced back, all the weekends she was, traveling for work, the nights she said she was with the girls. The phone calls she always took outside. The way she avoided conversations about her past. I stood up, shaky. I think there's been a mistake. Mark didn't stop me. He just watched me walk away. I barely remember the drive back. The roads blurred. So did my thoughts. When I got home, Claire wasn't there. A text buzzed on my phone. Hope dinner went well, can't wait to hear all about it. Miss you already. I stared at that heart emoji like it was a dagger. I didn't sleep that night. The ring sat on my nightstand, a cold little secret I was suddenly ashamed of. And all I kept hearing, louder than Mark's voice, louder than the silence, was her whisper. You're the best man I've ever known. But now, I couldn't stop wondering. Who were the men before me? I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I'd misheard. That maybe her father was senile or cruel, or just mistaken. But no matter how many excuses I whispered into the dark, one truth kept returning. Claire had secrets. And I was engaged to marry them. The next morning, she woke up next to me as if nothing had happened. Hair messy, eyes sleepy, lips curled into that soft smile that used to make me feel safe. "How was dinner with my dad?" she asked casually, pouring coffee. I studied her carefully, like I was seeing her for the first time. Her hands didn't tremble. Her eyes didn't dart. She was calm. Too calm. "It was surprising," I said. She chuckled. "Let me guess, he gave you one of his speeches about how love is transactional or whatever." "Not quite." She raised an eyebrow. "Then." I hesitated. "He asked if I knew everything about you." She froze for half a second. Not long enough for most people to notice. But I did. "What does that even mean?" she said, with a forced laugh. That was it. No denial. No, what are you talking about? Just deflection. I dropped it. Pretended to let it go. But inside, I'd started digging. And I wasn't about to stop. That week, I played the part of the loving boyfriend. I kissed her in the mornings, made dinner at night, asked about her day. But in between, I searched. I started with little things. Her name on Facebook was Claire Reynolds, but when I looked up Claire Reynolds' marriage, nothing came up. But then I tried a trick my buddy Mike once told me: check county marriage records, by maiden name, and by variation. Claire Reynolds. Claire M. Reynolds. Claire M. Hendricks. Boom. Marriage certificate. 4 years ago. Filed in New Jersey. Spouse, Nathaniel James. I sat there staring at the screen. It didn't feel real. But it was. I looked further. Birth records in the same county, a Caleb James, born about 9 months after the wedding. Mother, Claire M. James. The puzzle pieces weren't just fitting, they were screaming. I backed away from the computer and just sat on the couch, numb. What kind of person does this? What kind of woman builds a life with someone else, then leaves, without a word, and starts again, like none of it ever happened? I wanted to confront her right then and there. Throw the papers in her face. Scream. Break something. But I didn't. Because the man I was 2 weeks ago would have done that. The man I was becoming. He needed more than just answers. He needed the whole truth. That Friday night, Claire said she was going to a work happy hour. I nodded and smiled, even kissed her on the forehead as she left. Then I followed her. I know how that sounds. But I had to know. She drove to a small cafe on the edge of town. Not a bar. Not a lounge. A cafe. And then, I saw him. A tall man in a blue coat, standing near the door. When Claire walked up, he smiled like he'd known her forever. Because he had. She hugged him. Not a friendly hug. A full-bodied, long, intimate hug. The kind she used to give me when we were still honest. Then they walked inside. I sat in my car, heart pounding, fingers cold. I waited 30 minutes, then walked in casually, like I was there for a to-go order. They were at a booth in the back. Claire's hand was on his. They were laughing. And on the table between them was a crayon drawing. A little boy's drawing. Stick figures. One labeled Mommy. One labeled Daddy. One labeled me. I didn't even hear what they were saying. I just stared at that piece of paper like it was a loaded weapon pointed at my chest. I turned and walked out. My legs felt like lead. My lungs, like they couldn't expand. She had a whole other family. And she looked me in the eyes every night and said she loved me. When she came home later that night, I pretended to be half asleep on the couch. She slid next to me and whispered, "Missed you." I nodded, eyes closed. I didn't sleep. Saturday morning, I met with Mike, my oldest friend and the only person who knew something was wrong. We sat at a diner over black coffee in silence until I finally said, "She has a husband." He didn't flinch. Just blinked slowly. "What?" "She's married. Has a son." He leaned back, stunned. "Claire." I nodded. "Saw them last night." "Him." "The kid." "It's real." "Dude." "Yeah." "Are you gonna confront her?" I shook my head. Not yet. Why not? I stared out the window. Because she didn't just lie to me. She built a lie. A full second life. She made me believe I was her everything when I was just her escape route. He was quiet. I want her to feel it, I said finally. I want her to feel everything I'm feeling right now. That night, I opened the ring box for the last time. I didn't feel awe. Or love. Or nervous excitement. I felt used. Humiliated. And quietly, beneath it all, angry. So I started planning. Not just a confrontation. A moment. A public one. One she'd never forget. The next few days passed like I was living in a dream. Claire talked about honeymoon destinations, flowers, colors. She said her friend Emily could help with the invites. She wondered if I wanted to write our own vows. Every word was a needle. I smiled through all of it. And every night, I added a new detail to my plan. Guest list. Timeline. Backup proof. And a letter. A letter for Nathaniel, her real husband. Just in case he didn't know either. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. But what I didn't expect was how calm I felt. Not rage. Not pain. Just this eerie stillness, like the eye of the storm had parked itself right in my chest. She came home late Thursday with takeout and said, "Only one more sleep before the big day." I kissed her cheek. "Can't wait," I said. But I could. Because I knew something she didn't. Tomorrow wasn't her wedding. It was her reckoning. There's a point where the pain becomes quiet. Not because it fades, but because it goes so deep, it stops making noise. That's where I was the night before the wedding. I sat alone on the balcony, staring out at the empty street, the ring box beside me unopened. The same ring I once imagined slipping on Claire's finger, in front of friends, family, and whatever kind of future we were supposed to have. Now. I didn't even want to touch it. It was radioactive, poisoned by her lies. My phone buzzed. "Claire, I can't believe it's finally tomorrow. Ring, I love you so much. You're my everything." I stared at the message like it was written by a stranger. Because that's what she was now. A stranger with my favorite smile. A stranger who built a perfect lie and wore it like a second skin. I didn't tell anyone else what was happening. Not my mom, not my sister. I couldn't. They were excited. They'd already flown in. Mom even made cookies for the rehearsal that never happened. I lied and told them Claire and I agreed on a small, private ceremony. They were disappointed, sure, but I couldn't risk them getting caught in the storm I was about to unleash. This was between me and her. No one else. But that night, I broke. Not out loud. Not in any obvious way. But inside, something collapsed. I pulled up every photo we ever took together. I watched every video, every picnic, every weekend trip, every random moment she'd captured in a passing smile. I kept asking myself, was any of it real? And then came the shame. Not just because she lied, but because I missed it. The signs were there. So many signs. The weekends she disappeared. The work calls that came late at night. The tears she never explained, the photos she never showed me. And yet, I thought she was just guarded. I thought I was the one helping her heal. I wasn't healing anything. I was replacing someone. Someone who still existed. Her husband. Her child. I remember gripping the edge of the bathroom sink so tight my knuckles turned white. Looking into the mirror, I barely recognized the man staring back. Eyes tired. Jaw clenched. Ring box still in my pocket like a cruel joke. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I just whispered, she chose this. And I made a choice too. The next morning, I packed the envelope. Inside it. A printed copy of the marriage certificate. A birth certificate for Caleb James. A photo I took at the cafe, Claire, her husband, and their son. A note. Just in case you didn't know who she was planning to marry today. Jake. I didn't send it yet. That would come later, after the wedding. Because before any letters got mailed, I needed the moment. My moment. The one where she would have to look at me, and all the people she fooled, and explain herself. I kept remembering one specific night with Claire. Early in our relationship. We were lying on the couch, watching some documentary about double lives. Some guy who had 2 families in 2 different states. Claire had said, "I don't understand how people live like that. It's disgusting." I had laughed. "You sound almost offended." She turned to me and said, "Because betrayal, it's the most violent thing you can do without laying a hand on someone." Now that quote plays in my head like a drumbeat. She knew. She knew what betrayal meant. And she did it anyway. That day, I didn't go to the venue early like planned. I let her panic a little. She texted me 5 times. "Claire, hey, everything okay? Claire, where are you? Claire, babe. Claire, people are starting to arrive. Please call me. Claire, Jake, what's going on?" I didn't respond. I waited until exactly 1 hour before the ceremony. Then I walked into the venue. She was in a white robe, surrounded by her friends, fixing her hair, laughing nervously. When she saw me, her face lit up, until she noticed mine. The color drained from her cheeks. "Can we talk?" I said. The others took the hint and filed out fast. Claire stood stiffly. "Jake, what's wrong?" I shut the door behind us. "I know." She didn't answer. Just blinked. "Your husband. Your son. Nathaniel. Caleb. The marriage in New Jersey. The birth certificate. The lies. Silence." I expected her to cry. Or scream. Or deny it. Instead, she sat down slowly on the bench, eyes wide. "How long have you known?" she whispered. "A week." She nodded. Quiet. Almost relieved. "Why didn't you say anything?" I shrugged. "Because I wanted you to feel what I felt. To live inside the lie like I did. Just long enough to see it crack." She opened her mouth. Closed it again. Then finally said, "It wasn't supposed to go this far." "Yeah. I figured that out." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. "You don't understand." "I understand enough. I didn't love him anymore, Jake." "Then divorce him. Don't build a second life like a coward. Don't lie to him every night while kissing him good morning. I never meant to hurt you. You had a child. A family. And you came to me like you were starting fresh. You lied every single day, Claire." Her voice cracked. "I was drowning. And you used me as your life raft. But I'm not here to carry your guilt." She stood, voice shaking. "What are you going to do?" I looked her straight in the eye. "You'll see." And I left the room. I didn't cry. Not then. Not even when I walked past the decorated archway, past the seats, past the floral centerpieces with our initials. I just walked into the dressing room, put on my suit, and stood in front of the mirror one last time. But the man I saw wasn't the groom anymore. He was the reckoning. Tomorrow would be the wedding. But today would be her funeral, not of a life, but of every lie she told. And I was ready to deliver the eulogy. The morning of the wedding felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. Calm. Too calm. No birds chirping. No wind. Just silence pressing against the windows like a held breath. I woke up early. Before the alarm. Before the chaos. Before anyone could pretend it was still a beautiful day. My suit hung on the closet door, neatly pressed, tie draped over the hanger like it was proud to play its role. But I wasn't proud. I wasn't nervous either. I was ready. I made coffee. Black. No sugar. Just bitterness, straight up. My hands didn't shake. I didn't pace. No deep breaths, no pep talks. Everything I needed was already in motion. The folder was packed in my bag, the documents, the photo, the message I'd typed and printed. The envelope for Nathaniel was stamped and sealed. The speech was memorized. And every word in it was true. I got to the venue 2 hours early, just like we planned. The florist was still arranging the arch. The DJ was setting up. Claire's aunt waved to me from the parking lot, beaming like I was already part of the family. I waved back. Smiled, even. Not because I felt warm or welcome, but because I needed today to unfold exactly the way she planned it. Only then would the fall hit hardest. In the groom's suite, I found a note she'd left for me. Folded, pink stationery, my name written in her handwriting, curly, soft, familiar. I opened it. Jake. You've made me believe in love again. I still don't know how I got this lucky, but I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt how much I adore you. You are my beginning and my second chance. See you at the altar. See. I read it twice. Then I folded it again and put it back in the envelope. No rage. No tears. Just silence. Because when someone can lie that beautifully, it's not poetry, it's strategy. I checked in with the coordinator. She was frazzled, apologizing about the missing candles on the head table. I told her not to worry. I was the calmest man in the room. Guests started arriving around noon. Smiles. Hugs. Congratulations. People shaking my hand like I'd won something. Like I was about to enter some sacred covenant. If only they knew. My mom arrived, holding back tears. I can't believe this day is finally here. I hugged her longer than usual. Kissed her forehead. Thanks for being here, Mom. I almost told her everything. But not yet. She deserved to hear it the way everyone else would, out loud and undeniable. An hour before the ceremony, Claire's best friend Emily knocked on my door. She's nervous, she said with a soft smile. But excited. You should see her, Jake. She looks like something out of a movie. I nodded. I'm sure she does. Emily tilted her head. You okay? I'm fine. You're awfully quiet today. I'm just taking it all in. She smiled again. She's lucky, you know. You're the real deal. I looked her dead in the eye. Not everyone gets what they deserve, Emily. She blinked. That's true, I guess. And then she left. At 2 p.m., the string quartet started playing. The guests were seated. The aisle was set. And I stood at the altar, surrounded by men in tuxedos and women in pastel dresses, all waiting for the music to change, for the moment she'd appear, glowing, perfect, unreal. Which she was. Unreal in every way that mattered. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. A new message. From an unknown number. You must be the guy she's marrying today. I got your envelope. Thank you. N. I locked the phone, slid it back in. Nathaniel knew. And now, it was time everyone else did too. The music shifted. The crowd rose. I turned my head. And there she was. Claire. In white. Hair swept back. Smile radiant. Eyes locked on mine like nothing else existed. She looked stunning. She looked certain. That was what made it worse. The woman walking down the aisle wasn't ashamed. She wasn't conflicted. She was proud of the performance. And I was about to end the show. When she reached the altar, her hand slid into mine. Cold fingers. Hi, she whispered. Hi. The officiant welcomed everyone. Made a few jokes. Talked about love and trust and the beauty of two lives becoming one. I let him speak. Let the room settle into that warm, sacred hush. Then, just before he asked us to exchange vows, I raised my hand. Before we begin, I said, I'd like to say a few words. The officiant blinked, surprised. Sure. Claire squeezed my hand gently, like she didn't know whether to smile or panic. I took a breath. And turned to the guests. Thank you all for being here today, I said. It means the world to have so many people who love and support us. That's why this next part is so important. I pulled the folder from behind the podium and held it in my hands. I was going to marry Claire today. I had the ring. The vows. The plans. Claire's face was frozen. Still smiling, but only from the teeth down. But last week, I found out something. Something Claire never told me. Not once. I looked out over the crowd. Claire is already married. Gasps. Confusion. Murmurs rippled like thunder across the chairs. She has a husband in New Jersey. His name is Nathaniel James. I opened the folder and held up the marriage certificate. They married 4 years ago. I flipped to the next page. She also has a son. Caleb. 4 years old. Beautiful kid. Looks just like her. Now it wasn't just murmuring, it was noise. People whispering, standing, turning to one another. Claire reached for my arm. Jake, please. I stepped away. No. You don't get to speak. You had every chance. Every night. Every morning. Every time I told you I loved you, and you told me the same with a straight face. I turned to her fully now. You didn't just lie. You chose to build a second life and invite me to live in it, while pretending the first one didn't exist. Her lips trembled. I wanted to tell you. No. You wanted me to never find out. I looked out over the crowd. I won't marry someone who can look me in the eye and still hide a child behind it. I pulled the ring from my pocket and placed it on the podium. She wore white. But every part of this was built on a lie. Then I turned. And I walked. Down the aisle. Past the stunned faces. Past my mother's hand clutched to her chest. Past the string quartet, now completely silent. Past the future I had once imagined. I didn't look back. Not once. Outside, the sun hit my face like I'd never felt it before. The wind was back. The birds were back. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I could breathe. I didn't just escape a marriage. I escaped a prison I didn't even know I was in. And I was free. The sound of the door closing behind me at that wedding hall was the cleanest sound I'd heard in weeks. No more whispers. No more fake smiles. No more rehearsed vows built on rot. Just the click of finality, like the last page in a book that needed to end. I walked into the sunlight wearing a suit I no longer needed and a freedom I didn't realize I was missing. People always ask, how did it feel? I tell them the truth. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. I got in my car and drove. No destination. Just motion. Every mile between me and that chapel felt like peeling off another layer of someone else's lie. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove with the windows down, letting the wind remind me that I was still here. Still whole. Still mine. About an hour in, my phone lit up. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts. Claire. Please call me. I didn't want it to happen like this. Jake, you don't understand. I wasn't trying to hurt you. Come back. Let's talk. Please. Where are you? I love you. I always have. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some truths don't need conversations. They need distance. By nightfall, I checked into a small roadside motel near a lake. Quiet. Unassuming. The kind of place you go to disappear for a night, or maybe start over. I sat on the edge of the bed, suit still on, tie loosened. Then, finally, I opened her last message one more time. I love you. 3 words she used so freely. So easily. But love isn't about saying the right thing. It's about being the right thing. Even when it's hard. Especially then. I powered off my phone. Let the silence take over. It felt good. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of birds and a breeze rolling off the lake. I took a walk down to the water. Sat on the dock. Let my feet dangle over the edge like I was a kid again, before life got complicated. Funny thing is, I didn't feel broken. I felt light. Like grief was a weight I had unknowingly carried, and finally set down. 4 days, I stayed there. No calls. No updates. I needed the quiet to remember who I was before Claire walked in and rearranged my life like furniture. And when I finally packed up to leave, I didn't take anything of hers with me. Not the memories. Not the notes. Not even the playlist she once made for our road trips. I deleted it all. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. She had taken enough space in my life. When I got back to the city, the fallout had already begun. Everyone knew. My mom called, heartbroken for me, but proud. "I don't know how you stood there and did that," she said. "Because I had to," I told her. "Because if I didn't, I'd be living a life I couldn't trust." My friends were split, some shocked, others not surprised. "She always seemed too smooth," Mike told me. Like she was playing a part. They were right. Claire was never clumsy with her love, she was calculated. Careful. Measured. She didn't stumble into a double life. She built one. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. I opened it. I knew the handwriting. Claire. Jake. I know you won't answer my calls. And I don't blame you. But I want to say one thing, everything I felt for you was real. I was trapped in a life I didn't want, and you gave me a way out. I should have told you the truth. I was scared. I lied. And I hate myself for it. You didn't deserve what I did to you. And I will regret it for the rest of my life. I hope someday you can forgive me. Claire. I read it once. Then again. Then I folded it quietly and dropped it in the trash. Because here's the thing about apologies, they don't rebuild what they break. And no letter would give me back the man I was before she turned love into a performance. Months passed. The ring I once bought for her. I sold it. Used the money for something better, a cabin weekend with friends, a new bike, and the start of a savings fund for something real, whenever that came along. I stopped looking at couples on the street and comparing. Stopped wondering what she was doing. Started living again. One slow, steady step at a time. Then, one afternoon in autumn, I met someone. Not in a grand, movie scene way. She worked at a local bookstore I stopped into on a rainy day. Her name was Grace. She asked what I was looking for. I told her I wasn't sure. She handed me a novel and said, "Try this. It's about starting over after everything falls apart." We talked. We laughed. We didn't trade numbers right away. We didn't rush. And that was the beauty of it, no pressure, no secrets, no past screaming for attention. Just two people, talking honestly for the first time in a long time. I'm not going to say Grace was the one or that everything clicked magically. Real life isn't a movie. But she listened when I spoke. She asked hard questions. She never once flinched when I told her what happened. "You deserved better," she said. And I believed her. Not because I needed to hear it, but because I finally believed it myself. Today, I live without the shadow of that white dress. I don't measure every woman by Claire's betrayal. I don't expect every smile to come with strings. I just live. Honestly. With open eyes. And a stronger spine. I still believe in love. But not the kind that hides things. Not the kind that thrives on half-truths and avoidance. I believe in the kind that stands still when things get hard. The kind that doesn't disappear when someone else walks in. The kind I gave her, and that she couldn't return. So if you're listening to this, and you've been lied to, betrayed, broken, blindsided, I'll say this. Don't chase the apology. Don't beg for closure. Don't lose yourself trying to understand someone who never gave you the full truth to begin with. Walk out. Speak up. Take your peace back. Because silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, silence is survival. She wore white. But I walked away in truth. And I've never looked back. Not once.